Tumia Bima Pap kwa kupiga nyota 150 nyota 51 alama ya reli au kwa WhatsApp tuma neno Bima Pap kwenda namba 0764166066 ujipatie bima.
Bima Pap, urahisi wa maisha.
Greetings. Welcome to another episode of the Citizen Exclusive with your host, as always, Mpoki Thompson. An exciting episode today. I'm at the headquarters of Tanzania Breweries Limited in Dar es Salaam, TBL, and our guest today is none other than the company's managing director, Jose Moran. Today's discussion will center on investment, regulatory issues, farming, but also sectorial and the outlook for the business. Jose, welcome to the Citizen.
Thank you so much. Asante sana.
Indeed. Congratulations are in order. So TBL recently announced an investment of 42 billion shillings in a malting plant in Kilimanjaro. Now, can you tell us a little bit about that? The impact, what Tanzania should expect, how it's going to scale up the business, but most importantly, how farmers are going to benefit from it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Poki, for this opportunity, for being here. Definitely, this Maltese investment is something that we have been already thinking probably for the last 2 years. It was a project. As you know, we used to have a Maltese plant in the same location, Moshi, but we decided to close it because the financials were not positive back then. It was not making a business sense to keep it running. I believe it was around 2016, 2017. But the market has changed. Actually, this is a very nice story around collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, where we came back 3 years ago to the Ministry of Finance with the support of the Ministry of Agriculture and said that in order for us to think about how to revamp the malting facility and to actually expand the farming project, there needed to be some type of incentive that would allow any company, in this case us, to pay back that investment because it's a very important one. And then through a lot of work, collaboration, using metrics, there was an incentive that was granted. It's an excise break for barley that is, or for malt that is produced locally. Okay, so it's again, betting on local crops, local sourcing. And that's why we went then, therefore, we pursue this project. This is going to be commissioned in Q1 next year, so March 2024. It's a 3 to 5 year project. Year one, we're going to go from zero right now to 12,000 tons of local barley. In average, we buy 5,000 that we use as an adjunct. So we just mix it with imported barley. But now what we planning to do is that we no longer, or we want to reduce the importation. We're going to start with this first project, which is 12,000 tons, year one. And we have the ambition that depending on how fast we can grow on the farming project, on the yields, because these are new varieties that we're also bringing into Tanzania, we can get probably by year 3 or 4 to close to 35 to 40,000 tons, which is what we use annually. So that we are coming back to your question, what it means to farmers. It's a lot of employment. It's going from annual 5,000 to 35 to 40. So that is a massive step change in the revenue, in the livelihood, in revenue for the government, and especially around also the potential once we have managed to scale up, also to look to also be a source to export markets.
Yeah. Now, as you mentioned, the malting plant existed, but it had to be shut down due to the fact that it wasn't making any financial sense. What is your confidence level that this new malting plant will be able to be sustainable? What is the strategy that will ensure that it makes now the financial sense and the goals that you've set out are achieved?
Definitely, first of all, for any business case, any project to make sense, we need to have a conducive environment. And I have to say that today, Tanzania has a great presence from what we're seeing in the market, what we're seeing around the openness of the government to collaborate with the private sector. And also we're seeing very encouraging prospects towards the future, because we're seeing that the market will continue growing, will continue evolving. So for this project, it's all around volume. It's all around us seeing a positive perspective, seeing a stability in the fiscal decisions around taxing, in around how the macroeconomics and the microeconomics are progressing. With this tax incentive now, it really helps a lot around accelerating the payback for the investment, because at the end, it's money that we have to pay up front. And year one, for example, is $10 million. So it's an important investment, and it's a modular malting plant that every year, based on the capacity we're going to need to be investing ahead. But at the end, what really makes it viable is the fact that, first of all, we're localizing a key raw material for us. Yeah. What we're seeing also is the price of malt internationally, especially because of the effect of the war in Russia and Ukraine, which unfortunately is not going to end anytime soon. It's going to make a very viable the local production. The price, the cost to producing it locally now is better than importing. But in the long term, once we reach a scale, we get that massive incentive. So I really believe that it's very sustainable, and at least it's not something that can change, that suddenly will force us to make the decision that we had to make 5-6 years ago.
But then again, now you had to talk to the government around the preferential treatment in terms of the taxation. But there are other external factors that might perhaps impact the operations of the malting plant. What plans do you have in place in order to ensure that you sort of safeguard this investment and for it to not be quite volatile in terms of now being impacted by external factors? So what are some of the enhancement plans that...
Well, definitely having these, what we call vertical operations, when actually we integrated backwards around, we are the providers of one of our key raw materials by malting it instead of buying the malt from a third party. We know that we can do that better. Okay. Also, we have invested in quite a cutting-edge technology. This Remo malt is going to be the first malting site using this technology in Africa, and we have seen the numbers so far. We have seen what it can produce, and it's very efficient. There's a lot of technology involved in the process, which we didn't have back then. One of the biggest issues with the old Moshi plant is that it was too old, really didn't receive the investment, and then the equipment was no longer providing the efficiency expected. This is not the case. We believe strongly in this technology. And also it's something that is not new for us, for the group. We do it in other markets. And we strongly believe that by localizing our sourcing, it's not only the importance around the benefit that we get from the excise, the benefit that we get from the cost, it's also that we, in some way, we're contributing to a bigger picture, a bigger ambition that the country has around boosting agriculture. Okay. And something that we felt that we were incomplete as TBL is that we are already sourcing a lot of things locally. But malt and water are the biggest raw materials in beer. So the water we get it from Tanzania. So it was a missing part to complete this cycle.
Okay. Now, speaking of technology, which is something that TBL, you're quite intentional in terms of scaling up your technology. Now, how do you ensure that the farmers that you work with are also at par with the technological advancement? What are some of the initiatives that you have in place in upskilling farmers on the technological scale as well?
Definitely, that's a very good question, and it is a journey around getting there with the farmers. But we already have a program where we are working very closely with the farmers. So we for example, we have more than 5,000 farmers working on sorghum. We have like 50 farmers working on grapes. With local barley, without this big transformation of the program, we already have, I believe, like 1,000. Okay. And what we're doing with them is that we have provided an app, which is a blockchain app that is called VanQ, where serves as a point of communication between the breweries and the farmer to control several things. One, to providing know-how to control from the seed to the harvest, to get a close monitoring around the how to improve their yields, what is the type of controls they need to have through several stages of the process. Secondly, is something that empowers them because it gives visibility of how many tons they have, what is the price that they're going to be paid, controlling that the aggregator is paying the right price to the farmer, so making sure that there's no abuse, but also making sure that gives them access to microcredit. Also, the fact that we have visibility through the blockchain also allows them to get training around upskilling. It's a program that we already have in other countries and we have seen quite successful. Here in Tanzania, we have just started and we're going to be ramping up. One of the biggest learnings is that, or biggest challenges is internet access. So these farmers are in very rural locations, so that's quite a barrier. And even literacy around managing a smartphone, even if it's the simplest type of thing, it still needs to be a smartphone to be able for them to keep connected. So it is a journey. It's something that we're doing in parallel, and we have to understand that we need to get closer to them, because from 5,000 to 40,000, which is our ambition, it's quite a long journey, and we really need to scale them up to make sure that we get the yield that we're expecting.
Now, speaking of the blockchain, something that has been quite discussed within the manufacturing sector in relation now to the electronic tax system, the ETS. Now, the Minister of Agriculture, Hussein Bashe, mentioned recently that they, as the government, are willing now to initiate the pilot phase of the blockchain as a potential chain that can be used alongside the ETS, or even potentially replace the ETS due now to the concerns that ETS is too expensive. Can you elaborate a bit about that? And what is your optimism that eventually the ETS puzzle will be resolved?
I'm very optimistic. First of all, I really want to thank Minister Bashe for taking that bold decision. Actually, this will be a game changer because we have already been working with the government, in this case with CRA, with this pilot that we're running here in our brewery around having a parallel system with using blockchain technology to prove that the electronic tax stamps system that today are at source to a third party, a Swiss company, which I understand the reason why, can be done here. And I believe that TTCL is very interested to take ownership of this pilot, of this technology, to be developed by a Tanzanian company. But the great news, or what really is the game changer, is that now we have a project which is going to be implementing this blockchain with the fertilizers for the Ministry of Agriculture. It's something that is going to be owned by the government. So really our work is just as a facilitator, bringing our experts, our technicians, to help the government build the blockchain system. And it's as simple because once the theory is proven in practical terms, there's no reason anymore to say that there is a better system from a third party where the private sector is paying millions of dollars that cannot be managed by a Tanzanian entity at the 10th of the cost. Is something that is going to make us very proud as Tanzanians, making sure that we are managing now. And of course, as I said, there's going to be no reason to say that it doesn't work because we will have it. So actually, we are super, super excited about this. And we're putting all our efforts to make sure that it works from day one.
So is there any specific timeline from the pilot to it actually being implemented?
Well, I am not that close in that sense, but what I know is that we are signing that MOU next week.
Okay.
Actually, we're having our team from Belgium that are coming to help, where we have a center of the technological excellence. They are helping in the project. And what I have been told is that probably in 3 months we should already be with something that can be testing. So it's happening fast. Also, we're getting a lot of support, and actually there's a lot of expectations. So the faster we can get there, the sooner we can have a solution.
Yes. So as we continue to talk about how the private sector engages the public sector in this line, the government. Recently, the private sector met with the president and they talked about their plea for the tax system to be reviewed. As a key private sector player, I want to have a sense of your opinion in the tax administration. Now, you've talked to the finance ministry and they were willing to give you a preferential treatment. But generally, what is your view of the tax administration? And what are some of the challenges that you think need to be addressed in as far as taxation is concerned in Tanzania?
I have only had the pleasure to live in Tanzania for 2 years, so I can only comment from my experience.
Yes.
What I heard from my predecessor and from people before my time here in TVL is that in the past it used to be very difficult to engage, for example, especially with certain ministries, especially with the TRA authorities. What I can see from my experience is that has changed a lot, has improved, is very open. There are several discussions. Actually, the example of this excise incentive, the break on for the local malt, it's clearly an example of them listening, reviewing the numbers, and working together with the private sector. What I have to say today that still it's a pending assignment from a taxing point of view is solving the ETS. Clearly something that we have been advocating, not only as TVL, but also as part of the CTI.
Yes.
Because for us, we have provided the numbers, we have provided the business case, and we have explained several times that we're not against the system. What we are not comfortable is that we are paying more than what we should be paying to a third party. That is money that the government is not even receiving, so it doesn't really make sense. So that is a pending assignment that we still have not got, as private sector, as the industry, any answer. We know that the contract it's already expired, and we don't understand why we continue. That's one of the pending assignments.
But sorry, the government did mention that they talked to the private sector and say that if you have an alternative for the sourcing, then but what conversation is there?
Well, actually, we have provided them a lot of alternatives. They have one alternative, the blockchain, but there are also other alternatives, other providers that will charge probably only 10 to 20% of the actual cost. So imagine the savings that the sector could have. We have provided a list. We are aware that those suppliers did meet with the government authorities because we were part of some of those conversations. And now I'm talking, when I say we, I'm not talking TVI, I'm talking CTI. I'm a member of CTI. So all of this lobbying has happened. So I sometimes get a little bit concerned when I see articles from TRA saying that they're waiting for an answer from the manufacturing industry, because we have several times. But anyway, that's a pending assignment. Secondly, what we also see that we would like to see, especially in the next fiscal budget announcement, it's some type of stabilization. I believe sometimes we hear that TRA needs to raise taxes. I believe what we need to raise is collection. So not necessarily raising the rate of the taxes is going to give us more collection. We have proven in the last 2 years there have been some stability. No excise increases in different regions, in different sectors, has brought growth. For example, in our case, we last year we paid double-digit rates of more taxes, not only excise but VAT, income tax. So we believe sometimes in the concept of less is more. If you keep the stability, you don't increase the excise rate, we believe that therefore that increase is not translated to the price to the consumer, and we can all grow. So that is something that we would like to see, that stability, and a little bit of like a long-term planning. So at least we know, okay, what is going to be the tax regime for 3 years, like a 3 on 3 years framework, because it also allows to plan your investment. Not like every year there can be a change, and therefore the plans that I make today are no longer viable tomorrow. And the third thing that probably can help, it's how we can find a way of easing the cost to doing business. And what does that mean? we as TBL, we are the biggest taxpayer, we're a big industry. In some way, we have the infrastructure to comply with all the different taxes, licenses, permits that you need to do to operate. Yeah. But if we really think about like a mid-sized company or a small-sized company, when we're thinking around entrepreneurship, yeah, sometimes the actual legislation is very bureaucratic. It's very complex. You need to pay for a lot of rates, licenses, and permits that perhaps it should be simplified, it should be consolidated. And that's something that we have also advocated. Not necessarily will make our life easier as TBL, as I said, as part of the large taxpayer group. Yes. It's a different situation, but I'm thinking more nationally. Yeah. What needs to be done as a businessman to actually create more employment, and this is something that we also have advocated. Make it simpler, because making it simpler also is a way to raise collection. Okay. There's more people that are going to be paying taxes.
Okay. So now, are these some of the conversations that you've had with the government in terms of now how to ensure that these will have a trickle effect on the entire sector, entire ecosystem, so that other businesses may benefit as well? Are these conversations that you're having with the government, and are they receptive to some of the recommendations that you're raising?
Very much, very much. Actually, there's very valuable people that we engage from time to time. Have seen new faces coming working into the government, into especially the key ministries that we work with, which are very open. They always are asking for information. We like to be a business that when we talk and we suggest something, we also always come back with a letter, providing evidence, providing numbers. We strongly believe on that. And a lot of the ideas are well received, but then from that to actually implementation, it takes long. Yeah, it takes and if we can increase our pace, I believe we will be better for everybody.
Okay, so as we're talking about growth and sustainability and how the market is, TBL, the financials for 2022, you've had positive results, 12% increase in revenue, and also gross profit by 20%. In terms of the market dynamics, I want you to tell us what is the biggest revenue generator for TBL, and what is your outlook on market performance, the year 2023? What is your outlook?
Okay, definitely we have seen a change in the market. There's good momentum. We're coming out of what we call the pandemic years, which were very bad for the industry and very bad for TBL. So we're seeing quite a very good growth. We're seeing a stability. Coming back to our biggest generator, like TBL Group, we are a beer company. We're also a spirits company, but 90% of our business is beer. So there's where we're seeing the growth, where we're seeing a great momentum. We have invested a lot in repositioning ourselves in the market, investing. I believe in the past we tried to slow down a little bit investment. It was not a good idea. And now we're going back stronger. We have focused a lot around innovations. In the last year, we have launched new brands because we understood that there were gaps in the portfolio for our consumers, like Flying Fish, like Kilimanjaro Light. We launched an innovation around Eagle Lager. We also, for example, on the cognac side, the spirit side, we also launched a flavor cognac, an innovation also on the spirit side, because we truly believe that for us to keep this momentum, that organically the industry is already growing, we need to be ahead of the curve. So that's part of what we're seeing. The outlook is positive. Last year was very important, as you said, a 12% growth on revenue, 20% on profit. This year, I see a more challenging year because of inflation. Yes. The cost escalation is big. Definitely what is happening across the world with the war, with the prices of oil, the prices of commodities increasing, is impacting us. We're seeing the cost of all our raw materials being exponentially higher than last year, and that is putting a lot of pressure. But it's not only putting pressure on us. If you see outside in the market, it's putting pressure on the consumer. The prices of everything has increased. Okay, actually, we have maintained our prices to try to kind of mitigate the impact to the consumer, but the prices of everything has gone up. So definitely, we all are competing for a share of pocket like of a consumer. So therefore, we need to make sure that we stay relevant, that we stay and we bring new things, so our consumers keep deciding in the limited disposable income that they have that still they want to enjoy with our products.
So now in terms of the curve, you said 90% of the revenue is generated from selling beer, but now inflation is now in place. How do you see that revenue generator being sustainable for TBL? You said now you're moving into innovation. What is your long-term strategy, as these are the external factors that I mentioned about, that which are out of your hand, and then now considering that 90% of your revenue comes from selling beer, but then if something else happens, then the consumer will be adversely impacted, so they might not be able to afford selling beer. As a business, how do you view such a scenario in order to ensure that you stay relevant in the market?
Well, definitely we need to make sure that our commercial strategy is a sounded one, that is a long-term one. So as I said, it's critically focusing around innovation. It's critically focused also on around our core brands, like Safari, like Kilimanjaro, like Castle Light. It's also around being very disciplined around cost. Yes. So that is critical, and that is something that I believe that we proudly do very well. We're very disciplined around how we manage our investments. And at the end, it's fixing the gaps that we have as a business. It's fixing the gaps that we have in our route to market, making sure that our people have this winning mindset to achieve more, to keep resilient. Even in a challenging market environment, we need to keep resilient, we need to keep positive. I strongly believe, for example, if we have stability around excise, around taxes, that those externalities does not impact the business, we can keep growing. Our ambition is that at least every year we should be growing double digit, at least 10%, which will be a superb growth for a big manufacturer like us. I do believe that the market is out there. I do believe that the macroeconomics are there. Like if you think about, this is a country that is growing GDP between 5 to 6% every year, that is substantial. If we also know the demographics, every year we have new adults starting to work, they're starting to earn. We see the middle class growing. All those indicators are very positive. Yes. So I believe that is for us we need to keep fit. It's like an athlete. We're running this marathon. We need to make sure that we are always raising the bar. So it's a competitive market. Yeah. We have a competitor. We need to make sure that in the moment of truth, the consumer is choosing our brands.
Okay, indeed. That's the help me go. So when it comes to the conversation about climate change, how much of an impact does it have on your business? And what are you doing as a corporation to mitigate the impact of climate change, which affects farmers, but also that indirectly or directly affects your business as well? So what are you doing as a company to combat climate change?
Definitely, it's something. It's a big problem, and we're already seeing the impact. Just like one small example, it's what we're seeing in our crops. Last year, we have a drought in certain areas. We have not the quantity of rain that we were expected, and we saw that there were not enough crops for us to produce. We had to import, and therefore at a higher cost, increasing the cost to produce beer. So that's quite a relevant, important problem that we're having today. So because people tend to think climate change, that is something that is going to come in 10 years, it's today. For us, it's a big issue, for example, because, as I said, the key raw materials to produce beer is water. And where there's no water, there's no beer. And it's local crops, like sorghum, like barley, like, for example, cassava in other countries. So for us, it's important that we're working with the farmers to improve the access to these crops, to make sure that we have sustainable practices with them. But also, even internally, we know that, let's use water as an example. We know that we need to reduce our water utilization. How much water we need to produce beer? One, not to impact the communities, but two, to be more efficient because it's a scarce resource. We, for example, we need to work around our finished goods to make sure that the materials that we're using are 100% reused or recycled. I don't know if you're aware that of probably 85% of everything that we sell on the beer side is returnable. It comes in a returnable bottle. Okay, the crates, even the plastic crates, we recycle that plastic to make new crates. Even for that 15% that is non-returnable, we have processes to get that recycled and use that glass to produce new glass. The same on cognac. That is a non-returnable glass that we recycle to reuse. So it's part around making sure that there's a circular value chain or supply chain. Also making sure that we are moving into renewable sources of energy. How we are thinking about going into solar, how thinking about going into biomass fuel to also, one, it's better costing, but two, it's more sustainable in the long term. So there's several initiatives that we're having around different touch points that are impacting what is going to be our carbon footprint as a business. And on top of that, we are part of several committees across the nation around sustainability. We want to be a champion in sustainability. We're also partnering with other companies around this, not only to improve what is the footprint of TBL in our value chain, but also to help others that don't have the means to understand and be aware that this is a problem and how we can address it.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about the taxation system, we talked about inflation. What other major challenges are facing the line of industry that you're in at the moment, be it on the local level, meaning Tanzania, and on the global level? What are some of the critical issues that your business is facing?
Definitely, we always have the issue around being in the fast-moving manufacturing sector. It's what I was saying, is how we are being on staying ahead of the curve around innovation, around technology. We're seeing that the ways of working are changing. We're seeing that even the workforce is changing. We have new people, younger people that demand and require different working environment, something that we need to always keep ahead and thinking how TBL is this year is making 90 years old, 90 years in this country. We're the oldest manufacturer in the country, but how we make sure that we are the most modern, that we're staying ahead and staying ahead in what we bring to our consumers. As I said, this is a very competitive market when I'm not just talking around beer, because beer competes also with other categories, with soft drinks, even with telecommunications, with tobacco, at the end is a share of pocket of the consumer. So how we stay relevant to make sure that that disposable income that a consumer has is going to be spent in our product and not in other. Also, as I said, probably the biggest problem in the short term, it's cost. How we keep the cost discipline without making decisions that are too short term and we don't forget the long term. As I said, in the past, we made this mistake around probably not investing ahead, don't being visionary around what was coming. Yeah. And now that we're seeing that there's a great momentum, we want to be disciplined, but also we don't want to be like greedy of not investing, because if you don't do it today, it is impossible to see that potential coming tomorrow. You sometimes you have to bet. So that is the challenge. What is the right balance?
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up now, on a more individual level, as the managing director of TBL, what keeps you awake at night? What is that one thing that gives you sleepless nights that is quite integral to your role?
Good question. To be honest, nothing really. I sleep like a baby because I'm really very confident in the future. I'm very confident in the business. I'm very confident in my team. It's an amazing team. We have managed to do a lot of great things in these 2 years that we have been together. But if there's something that keeps me awake, it's not really a problem. It's not that. It's what would keep me awake is I'm always trying to think what is going to be next, what is coming, what is that opportunity that we're missing? because that's really my job. The job of running TVL, I sometimes get the credit of something that I don't do. It's them, it's the team, it's the local team. But the only thing that I need to do is that I need to be ahead of my team, thinking of what is that opportunity that we're not seeing, what is that innovation, what is that decision to improve our financial statements, our results, and it's not thinking today, it's like, okay, what is going to happen 3 to 5 years?
That's a wrap with me, Mpoki Thompson, for the Citizen Exclusive. Until next time, bye-bye.